Good morning, and welcome to another edition of Q&A Social Security Disability Today Live. As you know, on today's show, we give you the opportunity to ask me questions live while I'm here and in charge. Attorney Anthony Reeves. Just to let you know that I do have some questions that were pre-submitted before the show. As always, the way the show works is this. I will answer questions live as long as there's questions available. I'll be more than happy to answer them. After I've gone through my pre-submitted questions, if there is no one submitting any live questions, I will then conclude the show. And then, as always, you know, we'll resume posting shows throughout the week, and our next live show will be the second Sunday in July. So, with that, let's go ahead and get rocking and popping. My first question is it true that not going to a consultative examination during a continuing disability review will not result in an automatic cancellation of benefits if the disability is a mental illness? Okay. And I'm going to actually put this together with the second question. And absent any signs of improvement, does that mean in certain situations it may be advantageous not to go to CE then? All right. Kind of as a disclaimer, let me kind of lead off with answering this question in response to a particular statement that was put there. The person who sent me the question also indicated they weren't asking for advice, they were just asking for general ins and outs. Okay. This is where it gets kind of tough, because invariably I tell people there's two types of things that is out there. There's general legal information, and then there's advice. The reality is anytime you're asking an attorney about specifics, you're asking for advice. And it's not trying to be funny, because I've had people who try to say to me, they're trying their best to coin their question in such a way so that it doesn't appear that they're asking for advice, because if they're asking for advice, they know in most instances you got to pay for that. They want to coin it as general legal information. So let me pause on this for a second, because there's the reason why I'm saying this in terms of answering your questions. The two questions that were asked to me, whether they believe it or not, were actually fact specific. So I'm going to tell you this, and you're not going to like it. I can't answer either one of those questions because they're so fact specific. So, and I always, when people come to me and they're like, well, I'm just trying to get some background, I'm like, no. You know what a background question is? If you get disability benefits, is it possible that they're going to review your case? Absolutely. That's a general information type of question. In this question, you're saying is not going to a consultative evaluation during a CDR, an automatic cancellation of benefits will not result. And it's basically a nice way of saying, if somebody doesn't go to a CDR, to an evaluation, and they have a mental illness, will their failure to not go cause them to lose their benefits or not cause them automatically? So you've got all these different phrases in here that are too fact specific to generalize. So in essence, and this is not trying to be funny, what you're in essence doing is you're trying to ask a general question with too many fact-specific components. Because you're saying a consultative evaluation, let's look at each part so you'll understand where I'm coming with this. First of all, consultative exam. You have no idea why they're scheduling it. They could be scheduling it because at the time of your original determination of mental illness, let's say this, you had a low IQ. They want to make sure the IQ is increased. Well, guess what? If you don't have anybody who's testing for IQ, they're going to send you for that. Let's say, for instance, it's because they made a determination previously that you had severe impairments because of depression or anxiety. Let's say the reason why they're sending you is because you haven't been to a treating mental health doctor in 3 years. So that's 2 or 3. So it could be up-to-date testing. It could be because they want to make a new determination because they made one previously and they want to see if the 2 determinations change. So think about it. Let's say they sent you for an evaluation when you were first found disabled, and I know you weren't asking about yourself. You were just asking for general legal information. So I'm trying to see if I can kind of give you some guidance so that you can have an understanding of where I'm going. Let's assume that when the person was first found to be disabled, they had an evaluation done, a detailed one. So now they want to have another one so they can have 2 comparative points. Let's say that a third example is the individual had medical treatment at that time through medical treatment sources. Now they're not going to anybody. So I say that to say this. in your mind, when I see the mental illness, it's almost you're trying to say that, hey, if not going to the consultative evaluation won't automatically disqualify you because you have the mental illness. It's almost as if you're trying to imply that maybe the mental illness is the reason why they didn't go to the evaluation. There's too many facts in there that there's too many unknown facts to give an answer to that question. And like I said, you're asking for a general answer, and you're asking for a general, and I know you're trying to say that you're just trying to get the ins and outs. And I'm trying, and this is where my responsibility is to you in terms of educating you and providing you information. You're asking for too many fact-specific required things in one general question to get a general answer, if that makes sense. So you got your consultative evaluation. You're also making a focus with regards to automatic cancellation of benefits. You're putting you're putting three components together: not going to the CE, automatic cancellation, and mental illness, to assume that the three together kind of insulates from one particular action. But the problem is that there's too many things that variables don't know. When you say mental illness, I don't know if it's depression, PTSD, I don't know if schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder. I don't know if it's ADD, personality disorder. I don't know if it's slow learning disabled, mental retardation. I don't know any of those things. So to basically put everything in there, it would be unethical and basically improper for me to basically lump everything together as one general answer. Because let me tell you what happens, and I'm an attorney, I've been doing this for a number of years, and I've seen this happen more than enough times. Somebody will take that statement I make and say, if I say an answer to that, whether it's true or not true, and that will be what they hold on to whenever they're going to deal with Social Security. So when something bad happens or something good happens, whatever the case may be, well, Attorney Reeves said under this certain scenario, and most representatives who do this will tell you the same thing. Way too many facts that need to be known in order to give you a good answer. Same thing. And absent any signs of improvement, does that mean in certain situations it would be advantageous to not go to a CE then? Yeah, now here, I will answer that one a little straight. Are there certain situations where it would be advantageous to not go to the CE? Depends on the rep that you're talking to. Let me tell you why I say that. I have a different philosophy. I said, I don't have a problem with my clients going to consultative evaluations. I really don't. Because I think about the weight of the evidence requirement. I look at all of the evidence as a whole. There are arguments that can be made one way or the other. There are some representatives that will counsel their clients to not go to a consultative evaluation. And there's actually starting to become this growing trend I've been seeing in different circles where in different parts of the country, some representatives may face the possibility of sanctions. Not saying it's definitely happened, but I've been getting some whispers in the wind that there is a possibility that some representatives may be facing sanctions if they advise their clients to not go. So I tell people, this is my thought, because when they say there's certain situations, the only situations I can think of is a situation where you're dealing with a bad evaluator who has notoriously been misleading, or maybe has a history of doing very bad evaluations. That could be a particular circumstance. Maybe you have a treating doctor that would be more inclined to, quote unquote, do those things. In terms of, I'm trying to get my bearings right. You may have a doctor who may actually do those things in terms of completing an evaluation for you, so you don't necessarily need a consultative evaluation. So I can't tell you what certain situations. So when people come to me and say, is there certain situations? You know what I would tell them? It depends on two things. It depends on you, it depends on your representative. What do you mean by it depends on me or my representative? Well, I say it depends on you because you can do what you want to do. I'm always of the philosophy that there are consequences in any case if you take certain actions. In any case, whether it's a non-adversarial, adversarial, whether it's an application, administrative, or litigation, there are consequences for every action you take the moment you avail yourself of a legal system to seek recourse for yourself. Plain and simple, whether you believe it or not. Now, those consequences can be positive or they can be negative. Just know that there are consequences. Now, third question here is, my mom passed My mom passed away a couple months ago. She received her check May 2nd. A letter from Social Security stated we need to return all the unused money. Does this include pensions from my dad? How much of this check can be kept? Okay. What you need to do is you need to contact Social Security Administration and find out exactly how much of that money needs to be returned. It sounds like your father and your mom's money are commingled. So they're probably not asking for money from your father's pension. They're not asking for that. They're asking for your mom's money. So what you need to find out specifically from Social Security, and they'll tell you, and I only know this specifically because my own family went through this recently. And when I was asked for advice, I said, contact Social Security, let them tell you definitively what you have to return. And they were told, they'll get one more check and no more other checks will coming. If more checks come, let us know because you're going to have to reimburse that money. And so I basically told them, this is the last check you're going to get based on what you're telling me. After that, keep an eye out in the account. If you start seeing checks from Social Security again, 2 things. Don't touch the money. 2, go tell Social Security immediately. And then once you're sure that they've stopped it, then you need to tell them ask them how they want the money to be returned to them. All right. Somebody asked me a very, 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 very good question here. Somebody asked the question, if somebody is disabled, how can they really, really, really survive on SSI? And that is the $1 million question. And I almost hate to say this, but it's almost impossible to live on that kind of money. It's supplemental security income. And I think it caps at about $720, $730 a month. For those people who've been in the workforce and you've been around and so forth, you're thinking to yourself, dude, $700 barely will pay the rent in some apartment complexes. If you're lucky. Most apartments go about $900, $800 a month, so you're thinking, well, I can't even pay for rent. So if you're lucky, you got food stamps. If you're lucky, you're living in Section A, and you're lucky, you're getting electrical assistance from the county. So the county's paying your electrical bill. You've got food stamps to pay your food, and now you got extra $700 something a month. And you're thinking, okay, what can I really do with that? And so the reality is that the answer to your question, when somebody asks me, how are you supposed to live? I'm always like, the best you can. And that's not me trying to be funny or being snippet or being sarcastic. It's just the reality. It's just the reality of the beast. Is that you got to do it the best way you can. All right. Someone said, if a representative takes a Social Security case, can they afford to lose? That's a really good question. And let me tell you why I say it's a really good question. Because a lot of times people fail to remember that at our core, Social Security, no, not even Social Security, attorneys are business people. Sometimes it's easy to forget that. Doctors, dentists, lawyers, even though we provide a service, a doctor and a dentist really have the service to your health. We have the responsibility to look out for your well-being in terms of counseling and providing legal support. But the reality is that we can't do those things without getting paid. If you go to a dentist's office, they got technicians that have to help them when they're helping do things in your mouth. They have people at the front desk for scheduling. Same thing for your doctors. They have nurses who sit there and take your vitals. You have physician's assistants sometimes. Just that simple. You have a lot of people who are necessary to ensure they provide the services that you need. But they're not going to do it just based on being nice. They got to get paid in order to do so. So when a representative is screening your case, they're screening it, because sometimes people say, oh, they're doing it because once I find out they think I got a good case, I don't need an attorney. I'm like, okay, no. What they're doing is they're screening the case to see if they have a chance to win it. That's the reality. Sometimes because I've had people come to me and they'll say, you took my case because it's a good case. I said, I took your case because I looked at because my initial impressions of the facts that as you told them to me and the information you provided gave me reason to believe that you had a pretty decent chance. And that's it, a pretty decent chance. That's all I'm asking for, a pretty decent chance. Now, sometimes when you look at the evidence later on, you realize, oh man, I can't do nothing with it. But that's the nature of the beast. But it's important to keep those things in the back of your mind so that you know that going forward. Now, someone has a consultative evaluation, last question coming up, and they've written out how my life has been for the past 7 months. Would bringing it to evaluation be a bad idea? I always tell people, when you're going to an evaluation, Ask them what you need to bring and bring just that. Sometimes people go to an evaluation thinking this is my opportunity to just lay it on the line. These aren't your treating doctors. They're not there to treat you. They're just there to evaluate you. And walking in, think about this for a second. Walking in with a breakdown of what's going on within the 11 7 months might be good to refresh your memory as to certain things. So if the doctor asks you questions, at least you know the answers to them accordingly. The key for you, and I'll say this again, the key for you really is making sure you identify. Let me say this again. The key for you is making sure you identify specifically what it is the doctors need for you to bring with you. Now, what's going to happen is they're going to schedule you for an appointment. You're going to get a letter in the mail, and they're going to give you a contact number on there. So what you want to do is if you don't know it, you want to contact that contact number, and you want to make sure you know specifically what you need to bring. So the reason why I say this is because I've had people in the past who have availed themselves of bringing all this kind of stuff, wanted to just take like all these different pieces of paperwork with them. And I'm like, look, when you're going there, they're not there to treat you. They're not there to ask you how you're feeling in terms of, want to make sure they look after your long-term care. They're just evaluating you based on what's going on that day. You know what would be very helpful is that if you have any medical records with you. Now, you might want to find out from the doctors before you get there how much of your Social Security file will they have access to, one. And two, is there any medical records you should bring with you? That's going to be a lot helpful to them because this way they have something to look at as opposed to just talking to you and asking you questions. And oh yeah, don't freak out if the appointment is like 15 minutes or it's really short. Remember, they're there to evaluate, not to treat. Now, as always, I want to thank you very much for taking time to join me. As I indicated before, I have a certain set of preset questions. If I don't have any additional questions from online, then at this point in time, I'll shut the questions down for today, and I will make sure I start posting questions during the week. As always, I appreciate it. So if you have any questions, remember, go to go to www.anthonyreeves.com, and you can always follow my schedule for when I do these shows. Like I said, I make a point to do them every second Sunday at 10 a.m. Let me say this again. Every second Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Okay? So you want to make sure you're here so this way you can get all your questions answered live. And as always, a lot of you send me messages through YouTube or go through my contact page. Those are still the best way to do so. I'll be more than happy to address a video answering and dealing with any of those questions that you have. As always, it's a pleasure and an honor to have had the opportunity to speak with you again today. If you're sitting here and my eyes are floating all over the place, it's because I'm trying to work my switchboard at the same time to make sure that I don't jump offline before somebody asks me a question. But with that being said, as always, I want to thank you very much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next month. And as always, keep those questions coming because, like I said, I enjoy making sure that I address your questions accordingly, and we will make this thing do what it does do the next time around. Have a wonderful day. Stay out of trouble. And this is your Q&A Social Security Disability Today.